Today we're going to be talking about adjectives. Our part of speech for today is adjectives. So adjectives are the first of the two sets of describing words. Adjectives are words that modify, describe, or clarify nouns and pronouns. So the adjectives are the words that describe your nouns and pronouns. Adjectives always answer one of these three questions. They always answer one of these three questions. What kind? For example, brown shoes. Brown is an adjective that tells us what kind of shoes. The next question is which one, as in those cars. Those is an adjective telling us which cars, which one, those ones. And how many or how much is the last question. For example, 10 boxes. 10 is an adjective telling us how many boxes. So adjectives describe nouns and pronouns, and they always answer one of these questions. What kind, which one, how many, or how much. So make sure that in your notes you've got the definition as well as the three questions on the first page of your notes for adjectives. Next, we're going to play the Is It an Adjective game. So I want you to, in your notebook, drag each word into the column where you think it belongs. So if you think it's an adjective, put it on the adjective side. If you don't think it's an adjective, put it on the not adjective side. So go ahead and pause this video now and do that, and then I'll reveal the answers after you play it again. Okay, so let's go through the answers. Our first one is loud, and loud is an adjective. It answers the question, what kind? So maybe it was a loud bus. What kind of bus? A loud one. Bright is also, yes, an adjective. It also answers what kind. What kind of light? A bright light, for example. Classmate is not an adjective because that's a noun, because it's a person. 17 is an adjective. It answers how many. Spicy is an adjective. It answers what kind. Difficult is an adjective. It answers what kind. Shovel is not an adjective because it's a noun, a thing. We is not an adjective because it's a pronoun. And fragrant is an adjective. Fragrant means something smells good. So is an adjective. It answers what kind. So double check that you got all the answers right in your notes. If you need to correct something, feel free to correct it. If you have any notes to make about maybe why you missed one or something, you could put those in the little notes section on your notebook. So make sure that your notebook reflects the correct answers. Next, we just have a little special case to talk about, which are called articles. So a, an, and the are special adjectives called articles. A, an, and the are technically always adjectives. Like I said, they're a special kind of adjective called articles. They technically answer which one. So like if you say, hand me the book, which book? The book, right? The is technically kind of describing which book you're looking for. On your homework assignments and stuff, when I ask you to label the adjectives, you don't have to count a, an, and the because there are just too many. But I just want you to know that they do count as adjectives. But like I said, on your homework, you won't be labeling a, an, and the. Okay, so sometimes some words can be either an adjective or a pronoun, depending on how they're used in a sentence, okay? Depending on how they're used in a sentence, they could be either an adjective or a pronoun. So you have to pay attention to what's going on around them in the sentence so that you can tell whether it's an adjective or a pronoun. Here's how you know. If it replaces the noun, it's a pronoun. If it describes the noun, it's an adjective. Okay, so if it replaces the noun, it's a pronoun. If it describes a noun, it's an adjective. These are the words that can be one or the other. Okay, these are the words that can be one or the other. And this chart is already in your notes, so you don't have to write these down. So let's look at some examples. We have whose book is this versus whose is this. The first whose in whose book is this is describing which book. Which book? Whose book. The other whose is completely replacing the noun book. So the first one, whose book is this, is an adjective. The second one, whose is this, is a pronoun. Next one, Mr. Smith wrote that versus Mr. Smith wrote that story. The first that in this set of sentences is completely replacing the noun, whereas in the second sentence, Mr. Smith wrote that story, that is describing the noun story. So in this one, our first one is a pronoun, our second one is an adjective. Next one, each kid has a coat versus each of the kids has a coat. Okay, this one might be a little bit tricky because they both do have that noun kid or kids, right? But in the second one, each of the kids is a blank of the blank, which tells you that each is a pronoun. Remember, in blank of the blank, whatever's before the of is always going to be a pronoun. So in this scenario, the first one, each kid has a coat. Each is describing which kid or kind of how many kids in a way, so that makes it an adjective. And the second one, each of the kids has a coat, that's a pronoun because of blank of the blank. Last one, would you like another cookie versus would you like another? In the first one, another is describing the noun cookie, so it's an adjective. In the second one, another is completely replacing the noun cookie, so it's a pronoun. So you just have to pay attention to what's going on in the sentence around it to be able to tell how it's being used. If it's replacing, it's a pronoun. If it's describing, it's an adjective. So for our last slide today, we're going to do some examples. So I want you in your notes to highlight all of the adjectives in this sentence. You need 3 cups of sugar for these cookies. And I'll tell you now, there are 2 adjectives. So go ahead and pause this, take a second to highlight them, and then play again when you're ready to see the answer. All right, here's the answer to this one. Our first adjective is 3. It's describing how many cups. And our second adjective is these, and it's describing which cookies. Next, most people do not realize the enormous number of books the public library has. This one has 3 adjectives. This one has 3 adjectives. So take a moment and highlight them in your notes, and then when I reveal the answer in a moment, you can check your work. Okay, so we have 3 adjectives here. The first one is most. Most is describing how many people, so that makes it an adjective. The second one is enormous, the enormous number. It's describing the noun number. And last one, public, is describing library. What kind of library? The public library. We have one more example. The wild and graceful deer ran through the forest. This sentence has 2 adjectives, so take a moment to find them. And here they are. They're wild and graceful. Both of these adjectives are describing the noun deer and telling us what kind of deer. So this is the end of our adjectives notes. Go through your notebook and make sure that you filled everything out that you need to fill in. Make sure you have all the right answers on the examples and that kind of thing. And then you'll be ready to move on to your practice problems.